Yesterday in class, we talked about web semantics, and I think the class mostly understood what it is and why it's important, but I don't think they understand to the full extent or the full magnitude of why it's important. So I want to create this video to really drill home the idea a little bit more. So I went into Google, I just typed in the word semantic to see what comes up, and we can see many different definitions. I'll just read one of them off here on the right-hand side. Semantics is the linguistic and philosophical study of meaning in language, programming languages, formal logics, and semiotics. It is concerned with the relationship between signifiers like words, phrases, signs, and symbols, and what they stand for in reality and their identification. So let's just say, simply put, semantics is all about meaning. That the words you choose, the words you put into a document, arranging them in a way that has meaning to the reader. And the reader could be a human reader, it could be a machine reading it, it could be a search engine, it could be something else that reads it. It could be anything, as long as it has some meaning. So having said that, I want to go back to our very first class where I used an example. Let's say me and several of my friends, we all joined a book club. And in our book club, what we wanted to do was, we want everyone to send in their list of favorite books. And then we're going to compile that all those lists into one master list so we can share with the whole group. And so anyone new joined our book club can look at some of our favorite books. So I'm one of the members in this book club, and I decide to start off my list looking like this. To people who live in the Western world, you can probably understand what I've just done. I've written the title of the book followed by the author. Title of the book followed by the author. If you're from, let's say, from Asia and you're not familiar with Western literature, well, too bad. You don't know that this is the title of the book and this is the author, because yeah, you would have no context. You would have, or chances are you haven't studied enough Western literature to recognize that this is a title, right? So too bad for you. Let's say another member in the book club decides to send in this list: T: Tale of Two Cities, A: Charles Dickens. Again, to the Western audience, no problem. You recognize that this is the title of the book, and A stands for author, and this is the author for that book. Maybe to someone living in in Asia, maybe they'll start to be able to recognize that, oh, T probably means title, but they'd have to guess a little bit. Yet another member in our book club sent in this list. And I guess maybe to some people, to people in the Western world, they'll probably recognize that this is the title and this is the author. So if you follow by an indent, that's the author. Now, someone in China might actually recognize, oh, this is the author, this is the book. To me, because I don't really read Chinese, I can't really tell that this is the title and this is the author. I would have guessed that this is the title and this is the author because it seems to follow this pattern above, and I recognize this book. So imagine that there's 10 people in our book club, and they all send in a list with different format on how they describe the book title and the author. Then we're going to have, that means we're going to, well, let me just say that's kind of a problem because everyone has a different format. So we're going to need to assign one person to take all these different book lists and standardize it so that we can just have one list that follows one format that clearly lists the title and the author of each book. Right? So you guys can see why that's important, right? Because it's just going to be too infuriating for new book club members to look through 10 different lists, each one with a different structure, document structure, right? So let's say back in the 1960s, maybe, or maybe it's the 1970s. I can't quite remember. There was a big company called IBM, right? So yeah, all of you guys know what IBM is. They're just one of these big computer companies today. And back in the late 60s or early 70s, IBM created something called a generalized markup language because they needed to use that to solve a similar problem to this. I don't remember, like I didn't read up on the history exactly what the problem was, but I can imagine that they probably want to share a lot of research papers, so or journals, technical journals or technical specification documents. They need to share documents between other researchers, other engineers, and computer scientists in their company. And they probably ran into a problem where each person would write a different document to state what the title of the journal is and who the researcher was, or what the title of a technical manual was and who the author was. They probably would have ran into a similar situation if with technical documents or research papers. If not that, they just had to agree on how do we standardize information so we can send it between each other so that our computers can easily parse out the right information and help us sort through the right documents we need to look for. Okay. So IBM created something called generalized markup language, which looked something like this. Okay. So they basically did something called tags or nodes or elements. Those all mean the same thing. But they're going to say, we're going to create these tags and we can nest other tags in it. Each tag must have meaning to a human reader or to a computer. So let's, for example, using our book list as an example, we're going to have a data node to represent everything between these two tags, this open tag and this close tag. We're going to list some information. Then the first set of information we want to list are books. And then within these two books tags, we're going to list individual books. And then within each book, we're going to have at least minimum a title tag and an author tag, so that when a computer or anyone in the world reads these three words, just by understanding that it's been wrapped by the title tag, we know that this is the title of the book. So, and also for these two words, to anyone who wants to know what is Fyodor Dostoevsky, well, Fyodor Dostoevsky is an author. Okay. Now, because I don't read Chinese, I don't know what these three words are right now, but if I look at it's been wrapped by the title tag, I know this is the title of the book. Likewise, these two words, I don't know what these two words mean, but if I look at the tag, oh, these two characters symbolize the author of this book. So if we think about it for a moment, back to the word semantics. Okay? Semantics is basically finding ways to make words or phrases or things in your document meaningful to humans, machines, or anything else that's reading that document. This is, let's say, a semantically friendly document because it's clearly describing what every bit of content in here is about. Okay, so let's say into the 1990s, maybe, I think it's 1990s, or even if it's not the 90s, 80s, whenever that was, right? The internet started to come about and people want to send information to each other through the internet, because that's what the website, when you're making a website, yeah, that's what the internet is about at the end of the day. It's about sending information to each other. And one of the ways to send information to each other is through websites. And when making websites, you make HTML documents or hypertext markup language documents. And here is an example of a web page that I created. And you can see that I'm trying to add meaning to the text in this document. So when I write pepperoni pizza here, I'm telling anyone who reads this document that this is the title of this page. And when I put pepperoni pizza here, I'm telling everyone this is a header for this page. When I put an image, pepperoni pizza, when I type in this text, pepperoni-pizza.jpg, I'm telling everyone that this is an image. And I'm going to also provide an alternative text, the best pepperoni pizza in Toronto. If I'm going to type in pepperoni pizza here is a fan favorite of our restaurants, I'm saying this whole phrase. What is this whole phrase? It is a paragraph. What is this word here? Well, this word it has a very strong meaning. It's not just like every other word in this paragraph. I'm going to give it extra weight in terms of contextual weight or meaning, or just in linguistic terms. These two words have more meaning or is more strongly pronounced than these words in this paragraph. And then I'm also going to write all menu items are subject to 13% HST. And that's just a regular text that I'm going to provide here. Okay, so what I'm doing is, or when HTML came about, it's kind of a descendant of generalized markup language, and it's used to give meaning to the words and things that you're about to put into your website. Okay, so this kind of comes back to when students ask, why can't I just put a B tag around here? Or let's start a new paragraph. And within that paragraph, why can't we just center it like this? Let's say call us at 416. Right? Why can't we center this text? And why can't we just use the bold on this? Well, the reason you don't do that is because if I look at this word, subject, and I look at B means bold. That doesn't tell me that doesn't give me any meaning from a human perspective. This is bold, subject is bold. Like, okay, but I don't understand what that is. You just tell me it's bold, right? It's like, let me try to think of an example. Okay, I can think of an example. Imagine someone said, you want to explain to someone what a baseball is. Or let's say I come to you and ask you, hello, miss or mister, what is a baseball? And the person replies with, baseball, white. As me as a person listening to that answer, baseball's white? Like, so anything is white is a baseball? Like, that's what will go through my mind. See, so this is kind of like saying this, subject, bold. Well, subject isn't always bold. You're just telling me you're telling me the stylistic presentation of it in this particular instance. Just like if I say baseball and someone replies with baseball is white, you just tell me in that particular instance a baseball is the color white, but that's not what a baseball really is. A better definition of baseball is baseball is a round object used in a sport where someone uses a bat to hit the ball, and depending on how far the ball goes and whether someone can catch it, that will let you get on base or something like that, right? That's a more meaningful description of what a baseball is. And I've seen baseballs that are red or green or multicolored, right? So it's not necessarily white. So just like and just like this phrase here, you say, call us at this number, and you say center. Well, this doesn't tell me anything, right? In terms of what this statement really is. If there were a tag, you know what, actually, I think maybe a better thing would be something like this, right? Using the phrase center doesn't tell me what this is. But if you change this to address, this phrase now has meaning because it's the act, and this is I believe it's a HTML compliant tag. This will tell me that this is an address. So that's part of why we don't bother using, or we shouldn't use, stylistic tags, because it doesn't add any meaning to the content in your HTML document. Okay. Having said all that, I want to maybe try to attack that question from a different point of view. Okay, and I'll do it with this slide here. So when you look at a slide like this, let's say you create an HTML document, like a website or pizza.html or any of these documents. You have to understand what is actually going to consume or read this document. And I've listed several softwares or client devices or things that will actually consume the software. One of them would be a human using a web browser like Edge, Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. They're going to open up this HTML document and they're going to see it nice and pretty in their web browser. Okay. Another person or thing that could be reading it are screen reading software. So for people who are visually impaired, they will use a different software to actually read the HTML content of your page. So a visually impaired person doesn't actually see things like text being centered or right aligned text or left aligned text, or how big an image is, or the fact that you've used red font. A visually impaired person doesn't see any of that stuff. But a visually impaired person will rely on, let's say, things like this: good markup to describe each one of these text pieces of words or phrases. Their screen reader software is going to rely on reading these tags to understand what the content is in here. A B tag doesn't really tell a visually impaired person what the meaning of that word is, other than that it's just bold, but it doesn't give any meaning, right? Or the center tag wouldn't have told you anything about this statement here. Likewise, another thing that could be consuming your HTML document would be a search engine. And a search engine, much like a visually impaired person or screen readers like Vox or JAWS, they only read your HTML document. They'll try to understand your HTML documents based on the tags you choose. So you've noticed that I've written a lot of different words here, and the fact that I've put the title on pepperoni pizza, I've used a header for pepperoni pizza, I have an image of a pepperoni pizza, and I strongly emphasize the pepperoni pizza phrase. And then I also have in this paragraph here 13% HST. Because I've put more weight on pepperoni pizza, weight because some of these tags, title, H1, strong, images, it's kind of already hinting towards the fact that this document is about pepperoni pizza. But I do mention the phrase 13% HST. Now Google needs to, so we're going to talk about search engine optimization in a later class. Because in search engine optimization, it's the idea that if someone types something into Google search, let's say they type a phrase like 13% HST, Google should actually read, Google has read all the HTML files out in the world. Some of them will have 13% HST strongly emphasized or in the title tag and such. Those are the pages that should probably appear in the search results. My page on pepperoni pizza shouldn't show up in the search results, or should not show up in the first page of Google search results if someone's trying to figure out what is the HST rate in Ontario. Because I didn't put any strong tags or title tags or header tags around this tax. I'm trying to tell Google I'm putting more emphasis on pepperoni pizza, less emphasis on 13% HST. So when Google reads my HTML documents, it'll know that it's going to be more about pepperoni pizza and not as much about 13% HST. So that's why, semantically friendly, marking up your content with semantically meaningful tags will help search engines as well as a visually impaired person. Yet another type of software that could be reading your website could be other developers. Right? They could be writing custom software to download your HTML documents. Then they're going to try to parse out each one of this information. They might want to know your address. So then through their software, they'll just look for the address tag and pull just this information. And their custom software is going to, parser is going to ignore everything else. Right? Or maybe you had a paragraph tag with some strong tags and somehow you marked up the price. You actually wrote, this pepperoni pizza is $3.99, and you put a tag around it to make it clear that that's the price. Then the web parser will be able to pull just that tag and ignore everything else in your document. Okay, so those are web parsers, and there could be so many other different types of applications, web services and whatever, that could actually be reading your HTML document. Now, the question I'd like to ask is, if you use center tags or italics tags or bold tags or font tags or any other stylistic tags, and you put those tags into this HTML document, none of these softwares up here, these four, care or understand anything about center, I, B, or font tags or any style tags. They don't care the fact that something is red or blue. None of these four things care. The only software or person that cares is this one guy over here, human. A human who's visually capable with Edge, Chrome, Firefox, they're the only ones that care whether a document has a really big image or a small image, whether something is blue or red. Only this group of audience cares. And they only make up a fraction of all this audience that connects to your HTML document. So that is why, or let me say, you kind of ask yourself, why would I put information in here that none of these guys need and only this guy needs? So that's why, in recent decades, a new technology, cascading style sheets, CSS documents, became a separate thing on its own that can be connected to an HTML document so that this group of audience, humans, can take both this document and this document, so a style document and the content document together, to make it look really pretty in a web browser. While all these other guys don't care about the CSS document. All these other softwares only care about the HTML, and they'll take content from it however they want. It also helps with data bandwidth, because the more information you send over the internet, the more data it takes. So think about phones. A lot of you guys have data plans, and your data plan might be limited. Imagine if you're just using a visually impaired reading software, and imagine you just have some custom applications that read HTML documents. Why download all this extra information, style information? It's just going to consume into your data plan, and all the telecom companies are just going to make lots of money, right? Let's reduce our data usage by reading only just this HTML document, which is just the meaning of the content in your document. Okay, so that's why center tags, styling tags, and all these other style tags aren't used anymore, or they should not be used in new web application development. Now, maybe I'll conclude with one more example. Hopefully it really nails it home. We used a book club earlier as the example, as a demonstration of what we're talking about. But we could have just as well did music player or playlist. This is my playlist, right? Or not really my playlist. I just made one up because I don't listen to these songs, right? So Gangnam Style is by Psy. Hey Jude is by the Beatles. We Belong Together by Mariah Carey, right? So Western audiences will, or even international audiences, can recognize this is the author, this is the title of the song, right? Now this is more my playlist, right? It's heavy metal music. You can see that this is Enter Sandman by Metallica and a few other bands, artists and bands, right? And this to Western audience won't really recognize these songs, right? So Hoi Tan is like a really popular Cantonese song, and another popular Cantonese song by this artist here. And give me a moment. So if we continue with the analogy of, or the example of books, let's say I want to share playlists with people, right? Obviously, this is not you have 3 different formats. We haven't standardized. How are you going to import this into iTunes or any of your other music player software if there's all these different formats? So my girlfriend sent me her iTunes playlist, and it came out as an XML document. So you can tell that this document is very similar to, or it's a descendant of IBM's generalized markup language, which then of course looks kind of like an HTML document. And like an HTML document, you start off by having a declaration saying that this document type is going to be HTML. This document type is going to be a playlist, and I believe this is the format we want to use. We want to use Apple's iTunes property list format. And we're going to list each individual track. All right, this is the name of the song, Tornado, and this is the artist. It's going to be an MPEG audio file. This is how long it'll take to run, or duration of the song. All that information about that one song. Here's another song, Just the Way You Are. Bruno Mars is the artist, and more information about that song, etc., etc., etc. So you can see how, let's say, you can see how versatile a generalized markup language is. And again, we're going to talk about semantics, right? They use a slightly different format, but this is saying that the key, this is name, and this is going to be the name falling down. The artist, this is going to be the artist. So now these phrases here have meaning to a computer. But if you decided to do something like this, I want to center this text. You know, this doesn't really have any meaning to a music player. Why does a music player care if Avril Lavigne is centered or not? Right? Adds nothing to semantics. Or what if you did something like this? A font times New Roman. Why would, you ask yourself, why would a font tag, why would the best damn thing in Times New Roman matter at all to your iTunes music player? iTunes already overrides all the font, like it has its own, the user interface for iTunes has its own style. So adding a font tag doesn't mean anything to iTunes music player because it's a styling thing, and depending on what consumes this playlist, the style tags don't matter. Very much like in HTML, you shouldn't be using b tags or center tags or style tags because it doesn't add any meaning to this document. Okay, all it does is it helps these people here, but it doesn't help any of these other audiences here. Okay, so that's why you don't use style tags in a playlist either. So, I have a separate slide here. Now, if I had a playlist.xml, right? John's playlist.xml, Louise playlist, David's iTunes favorites playlist. There are several devices that connect to it. There's a smartphone, Android, iPhone. Right? A desktop computer with iTunes software or Windows Media Player can read this XML file. Web players like Spotify and YouTube could potentially import the XML file. If not today, maybe sometime in the future. Someone else could be writing custom applications or web parsers. Maybe I shouldn't have said web parsers, but oh, sure, it could be web parsers, right? Some web parser could be reading this. Other people writing other custom applications could be reading this file. So you ask yourself again, just like the previous example, why would you add a center tag or italics tag or bold tag or font tag or any styling tags into these XML files? None of these audiences care what font family you choose or what font face or what color is the title of the music. For the title tag or for the title, let's say Enter Sandman by Metallica. Enter Sandman is red. None of these softwares care if Enter Sandman is red or the title of Enter Sandman is red. Music isn't something you visually perceive through a web browser. Okay, so style tags add no meaning to the document. Okay, so hopefully that makes semantics a little bit clearer, and hopefully it also explains why in HTML5 and going forward, or in fact in many let's say content-driven documents, you don't use style tags like a center or I or B or fonts or any of those things.